I would like to call on our main speaker today, Éirígí Cllr John Dwyer. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade. I've stood at this graveside many times and spoken, but I can honestly say with hand on heart, today I feel I'm among comrades, unlike on other occasions. I would like to thank Éirígí for inviting me to speak at the Liam Mellows commemoration this year. In my view, the measure of any revolutionary can be judged on how the political views espoused by the person stand up to scrutiny. And in these times I can say without fear of contradiction that Liam Mellows stands up to any such examination and emerges as a guiding voice of Irish Republican socialism. He was emphatic in his views that Britain had no right to interfere in the affairs of Ireland, that they never had such a right and that they never will have any right. He was equally emphatic that the men of no property were the true inheritors of our country. And it was this class of men and women who would never set our country out in the corridors of corruption in Westminster or in any other assembly. The murder of Liam Mellows by the Free State was more than an act of revenge by a ruthless enemy. It was a carefully calculated act on behalf of the forces of conservatism, designed to crush forever the belief on the part of Mellows and his comrades that we in fact could build a socialist republic that was firmly in the hands of those who would reject dogmatic and brutal theories of domination in the name of any god. Those same forces that greedily eyed up the prospect of having an absolute hold on the strings of power for the decades to come were in no mood to tolerate such lofty ideas coming as they did from revolutionary socialists. It is no exaggeration to say that Liam Mellows stood between those forces and their end goal of complete domination of our people. Look at the period in the aftermath of the murders of Mellows and see how the Catholic Church and those conservative, self-proclaimed nationalist allies now in charge of the Free State went on to impose their twisted version of freedom. Their version of freedom saw one of the most conservative and brutal periods ever in the history of our people. See how they treated human rights of the poorest in our country with absolute disdain. They brutalised our people for many decades, while the Dublin intelligentsia turned a blind eye to their excesses, much as they did during the lockout of 1913, by the way. The story of that brutality does not need to be repeated here today, for I suspect that everyone who's here today actually understands what I'm saying. Over this few days, several groups of people who claim to be either Republican or Socialist will lay wreaths at this grave. We needn't waste much time in second-guessing their motives. The words deception and power are adequate to cover their deeds. I've often wondered how one travels the path from declaring their total support for a 32-county socialist republic in one decade to being prepared to engage in the oppression of those who still hold true the vision of Mellows in the next decade. And I have in mind my comrade Stephen Murney. The harassment and imprisonment of Republicans by the British state must end, and must end now. Turning a blind eye to such tactics places those who do so in the same position as the SDLP were in the early 80s. The irony of appealing to a war criminal in America to intervene in the incarceration of a Republican in the 6 counties by Adams and McGuinness seems to have gone completely over the heads of those who were involved. To dissent from the coming together of the British state and former comrades in the Republican movement on the grounds that the agreement reached is to cement forever, or for as long as the British Secretary of State decides, the partition of our country can never be wrong. In pointing out the obvious flaws in the Good Friday Agreement, Éirígí have inherited the legacy of Mellows. The willingness of Irish men and Irish women to settle for second best has dogged this island for centuries. And ironically, it is that willingness on behalf of others to embrace Gombinism and Culturism of Fianna Fáil that now presents us with an opportunity to restate the views of Mellows, that a 32-county socialist republic is achievable and is the only way forward. As a revolutionary organisation, Éirígí are committed not just to ending partition, but to the complete overhaul of how this country is operated. Let me say this, that today they have the traffic corps to watch us. It won't be that long when there will be much more than the traffic corps watching us, because they should fear us. And I'm fairly confident that with the kind of politics that we espouse, and with our appeal to ordinary people, you see what you get with us. You get a Republican Socialist Party who makes no apologies to anybody for standing proud on behalf of our people. Thank you, comrades.